This is the Roller Coaster Podcast, and I'm your host, Lucy Q. Life is a wild ride. It has twists and turns. It's scary, exciting, and downright fun. So throw your head back, arms in the air, and come along with me for the ride.
Life is like a roller coaster, baby, baby. I wanna ride.
Getting clear means you understand what you're letting holding you back. Getting empowered means taking control. Dr. Denise Moore Revel, author, speaker, and coach, founded Own Your Amazing and helps people find their voice and live their worth out loud. Hi, Dr. Denise.
Hello.
So, how did you get into helping people find their own voice?
So my background is that I am a speech language pathologist or a speech therapist by trade. And so for years, I have literally helped people find their voice in terms of speech therapy and things like that.
Speech therapy is actually something that I'm somewhat familiar with. Our youngest was, when he was born, he was what's called tongue-tied. You know, people, if you don't know what that is, it's where the little piece of skin under your tongue goes to the tip of your tongue. So you can't actually move your tongue properly.
Exactly.
So he didn't learn to talk until he was 3.
Wow.
Yeah. So I'm familiar with speech language pathologists, and they're very challenging jobs when it comes to working with little boys who refuse to speak.
I live that every day.
And it was funny because I would see, right from the day my child was born, his name is Ethan, he knew how to charm people. And he would go to his speech language classes and he'd say to these, you know, he'd be with these young girls that were trying to teach him. And I'd be like, do not let him sweet talk you. Not that he could talk, but he just had this way about him. And they're like, no, we're trained how to take care of this. And then a couple of classes later, it'd be like, I can't get him to do this. I'm like, nope.
Oh, that's funny.
But I mean, and I look back on his journey finding his voice.
Yeah.
Because his world started off with not having verbal communication.
Right.
So, you know, I think it's very symbolic that's where you started. So how did that sort of transfer into helping people find, their authentic voice and being able to speak up and being heard in the world?
And so because of my work with children in particular, with literally finding their voice, like you mentioned with Ethan, but what I came to understand is that a lot of us may not have a physical thing that's stopping us from speaking, but we may have emotional trauma, or we've had parenting, or we've had situations where our voices were silenced. And so we didn't think we could speak up. We didn't think we had the power to live our own worth out loud. And so the journey from being a speech pathologist to being a women empowerment coach is my own journey, my own struggle with finding my own voice in my own life and really living my own worth out loud. And so I was on this journey of self-discovery, really trying to figure out who I am and what my life is about. And so I attended different workshops, read a lot of self-help books because I was like, I need to figure this out. What is going on with me? And so the story goes that I attended a workshop in Dallas, Texas. And I met one of the attendees, and she and I had gone out to dinner the night before the actual conference to talk and get to know one another. So on the next day of the conference, the facilitator had each person to come up to the front of the room and kind of get coaching. And so I laughed because everyone else who had gone before me, they were up there crying, bawling, and I'm sitting in the audience thinking, that's not going to be me. I'm going to be fine. I don't know why they're crying. Whatever. Okay. So it was my turn. So when I tell you, as soon as I sat down in the chair, I started crying. And so they're like, what's going on? What's going on? I was like, I don't know. He's not happy, had been doing well, had a great profession, great life, but I still just wasn't happy. And so the young lady who I had met the night before to go out, who I went out to dinner with, she raised her hand and said, I know what's going on with you. And so thoughts in my mind like, we just met. You don't really know me. I've been on this journey for years. How are you going to tell me about me? And I didn't tell you any of that. I just said, oh, okay, what's going on with me? And so she said, you're smart, you're brilliant, you're beautiful, you're talented, you're all these wonderful things. She said, but you don't own it. She said, you need to own you're amazing and stop playing small. I was like,
Wow.
oh my God, that's it. She really helped to give language what I had been feeling. Because I knew deep down inside there was so much more for me that I really needed to say, who am I for me? What does my life look like for me? And so that has been the journey. And as I have been on the journey of my own self-discovery, I've invited other women to come along because I see so many women struggling with the same issues. They have the degrees, they have the family, they have the kids, but deep down inside, they're not happy. They know something is missing. And so what I invite them to do is like really get in touch with you, all of who you are. And so that is the whole thing about Own Your Amazing. Owning who you are, flaws and all, mistakes and all, but really living your worth out loud and showing up in the world as truly who you are.
You know, you touched on something very interesting there, and I can't remember who said it, but it was something along the lines of you are perfectly positioned to teach what you've experienced. And I am on a similar journey because I went through that same moment of crisis. Except for I was well aware I was in the moment of crisis. I was done, tapped out, didn't know what to do. I was in full crisis mode. And I managed to pull myself out and create my own tools and resources to help me on my journey.
Mm-hmm.
How do you help women get in touch with who they are, what's going to make them happy, or, is it lack of purpose?
I always start with the simple question of asking a person, who are you? As simple as it may sound, it's very profound. Because, the other thing I say all the time is the most important relationship we will ever have is the one that we have with ourselves. But that is the relationship we spend the least amount of time on. And so we spend so much time with our spouses and our families and our work and church and all these different things. But when it comes down to spending time with ourselves and really understanding who we are, we struggle with that because we just have not been orientated for that. We've been orientated to look outside of ourselves for validation, for confirmation, for identity. And so I start with all my clients, a simple question, who are you? And when I tell you, it's a struggle for a lot of women to really own who they are, to see who they are for themselves. And so that's the beginning start, but it's a hard start. And I always say it takes courage. It takes courage to be who you are. You have to be courageous enough to say, this is who I am. I'm showing up, flaws and all, regardless of everyone's expectation of what I should be, should not be, what I should look like, not look like, have, don't have. At the end of the day, who am I for myself? And so that is how I encourage women, and I help support them to really find out who are they for themselves first.
The first thing that popped into my head when you said that we don't own our greatness was the first thing that popped into my head is, do you remember when you were a little kid on the playground and you had something new and some kid would be like, oh, you're such a show off? That's what rings in my head when I go to embrace my greatness. There's some stuff I'm really good at, but I'm embarrassed to say it because I don't want to be a show off.
That is such a great example that I think a lot of people can relate to. I know one experience I shared, I don't know if I shared it in the book or not, about the decision whether or not to dumb down because I wanted the boys to like me. Woo, yeah. And so oftentimes so that's why the person was like, she said, you're all these things. She said, but you don't own it. You're not showing it, because I was like, no, I can't, What are people going to say? Or the boy may not like me if I'm too smart. Those kind of things. We had all those messages, and we dumb it down. We dim our light. We dim our shine because of negative messages we've heard about truly owning that we're amazing, showing everybody our nice new shiny shoes. Everybody wants to, oh, I got new shoes, but oh no, what are you doing? So we hear that. And so when it's time for us to shine, to really step forward, we kind of gun shy. And so I'm saying, no, own your amazing, own it, embrace it, celebrate it. We have to celebrate how unique and special we really are. It needs to be celebrated, not hidden, or a lot of times we just play small because we are afraid to shine bright.
And yeah, I want to ask you, what is your experience? What is the major reason why women are holding back?
I think there are a lot of reasons, but I think, again, the major reason is we allow other people to tell us who we are, to define what is beauty, what is success, what are all these things. We get so many messages, and it can get very confusing if you don't really stop and say, what is this thing for me? What is the right thing for me? Not what everyone else is saying. Funny, I talk about in my book how it was time for me to choose a college. And I was afraid to tell everyone I didn't want to go to this one particular school because everyone assumed I wanted to go, and I was going to go because other family members had gone and great school. But I realized it wasn't a great fit for me. And so that's why I said it takes courage to say, no, that doesn't work for me. And I'm okay. This is the path I need to go on. But the story is, it was time to apply to schools. And I applied, sending out applications. So then acceptance letters were coming back. And so my dad asked me, hey, have you gotten an acceptance letter to this school? I was like, no, haven't gotten it. A couple more weeks go by. Hey, have you gotten an acceptance letter from this school? I know you've gotten it from this school, but no, haven't gotten it from school. Okay. A few more weeks go by, and I think he's getting a little suspicious. He asked me again, have I got my acceptance letter to this particular school? And I said, no. I said, let me go check the mailbox. So finally, I said, Dad, we need to have a conversation. I said, the reason why I have not gotten a letter of acceptance to this school is because I never applied.
Ooh.
Yeah.
How did that conversation go?
Not well. Not well at all. But eventually he understood. I finally said, Dad, I just don't think that's the right school for me. I know it's a great school. I know other family members are going there, but I don't think that's the right school for me. That's why I said it takes courage to stand up for yourself and to say, this is what I want for me. This is what I want my college experience to be. I'm not going to do what everyone is expecting me to do because that does not work for me. Yeah.
And it's the courage. It's the courage to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
To share your truth, because ultimately we're afraid of rejection.
Absolutely.
It's not easy.
It's not easy. It's not easy.
That's the one thing I've learned on this journey of self-improvement. I'm not sure when yours started. Mine started about four years ago. So I was in my mid 40s. And it was all of a sudden, it was like a switch went off. I think I had been denying it for a while for so many reasons, but finally it just got to, that one last thing. It's like, nope. But then there was a certain amount of guilt that came with that, because when I acknowledged that I wasn't happy, I felt guilty because I had every reason to be happy. I had a great husband. I had 2 great kids, beautiful house. I had all of these things. So then you go down, then you start going down even worse because you feel guilty for admitting that you're not happy. So how do you get yourself out of this mess?
When I tell you, I have so been there on so many occasions, feeling guilty again because I wanted to define my life my own way. Um, Again, that's why I keep saying it takes courage and strength and inner that inner strength of knowing that um, what you want for yourself is a value, and you have the right to stand for that. Um, when I decided to start my own practice, speech therapy practice, I got a lot of pushback from well-meaning family and friends. you know, but that's what I wanted to do. I felt like I could strike out on my own. And so I had to believe when no one else believed that I could do it. I said, so I would always tell myself, I'm going to give it a shot, a try. I'm going to bet on me. I'm going to give myself a shot. I'm going to give myself a try. And, here it is 15, 16 years later, I'm still on my own and have a successful practice. But in the beginning, again, a lot of people are like, what are you doing? I actually quit a job. I quit a great job to start my own company. And they were like, what are you doing? Are you crazy? You're going to do that? And I was like, yeah, because that's what I think I need to do for me. And if I fail, I fail, but at least I'm going to give it a shot. I deserve that.
And I think it's especially difficult when you're not like your family. And I suspect that's probably what happened to you in not applying for that college, is that you were probably the first one in the family to step away from what everyone else had done. So you were sort of breaking that pattern. You're that trailblazer.
Mm-hmm.
And we know most of the time, if you're that trailblazer, you are going to be pegged as you're the problem one, you're the difficult one.
Yeah,
you get all of
the
this.
foolish one. You're foolish. I'm like, okay.
Your head under the clouds. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it's especially difficult when you are doing things and when you are choosing to be courageous and step forward and define what it is you want in life. It's harder when you're the only one doing it.
Absolutely. That's why I was saying in the beginning, it's so important that you get very crystal clear with yourself. Because in the beginning, you only going to have you. You're it. You have to learn to be your own best friend. You have to learn to be your own cheerleader. You have to be your own motivator. There's so many times, going through that, starting my practice, where I just really had to talk like, you can do this. You've been doing it, because there were no other people cheering me on the way I needed to be cheered on as well. I remember going to meetings to get contracts, and I'm nervous and scared. Like, you can do it. I didn't have a partner. I didn't have a business partner. It was like, I was it. I was going in there to represent my company and try to get these contracts. And so, but I did it. I got some I got, some I didn't, but I had to courage up and be like, you can do this. Go for it. Just see what happens. Let's go. And so, but now, years later, I really laugh at my dad. I tease him all the time. He's now my biggest cheerleader. In the beginning, he was kind of like, what are you doing? Are you sure? Of course, he was well-meaning, but now he tells everybody about what I do. So, but in the beginning, not so much. And, so I tease him about it. I said, oh, now you believe in me. He's like, I always believed in you. I was like, okay, sure.
And I think that's key.
Yeah.
Is that we have to believe in ourselves when nobody else does. Because when it's all said and done, as you said, we are our own cheerleaders. We spend the most time with ourselves, and those conversations that we have in our heads, because we all do. I don't care who says what. Everybody's talking with themselves inside their head. Those conversations are critical to your mindset.
It's not only critical, is I don't know another word for it, but it's all you have to think. I think of times when people encouraged me to do certain things, right? To go after certain things. But the reason why I didn't do it is because I talked myself out of it. The conversations we have with ourselves are the most important conversations we will ever have because everyone else can see our brilliance. Everyone else can see how amazing we are. But we won't even put ourselves in the game because of what we said to ourselves about ourselves. So just think about how many times people are like, oh, you're great, you can do it. And you're like, no, I can't, oh, I don't know. That's what we're telling ourselves. Everyone else is like, yeah, you got this. Come on, you can do it. You're beautiful. But we're like, I don't know. But I know, then we compare ourselves. It's those inner conversations. That's why I talk about the power of your voice. It's really the power of that inner voice. That's really going to be the difference in terms of you having the kind of life you really want. It's that internal voice. It's the power of that makes the difference.
And that's the voice. It will either lift us up,
yep,
or it's going to shut us down.
Yep.
Every single time.
Every
single time.
I just think about when you said that, I just think about so many conversations I've had with family and friends where I'm like begging them to like, come on, you're brilliant in this. Oh my God, you need to start this business. It's like, but they're like, no. And they struggle with that inner voice. And I'm like, man, if you could only see what everyone else sees about you and change that conversation you're having in your head, your life would be totally different. It just pains me sometimes because I have so many people in my life that could be doing so many amazing things, but it's only because of what they're telling themselves that they're not doing it.
And you've written a book about this.
Absolutely. So let me tell you the story about the book.
You said it like, well, of course.
No. But there's a little backstory about the book. Again, the power of your own voice, other people. So high school, senior year now, my English teacher tells me I'm one of the worst writers he has ever had.
That reminds me, Lisa Nichols said something about, was it about writing or speaking?
Yeah. So my English teacher told me I was one of the worst writers he had ever had. And I said, Toby, and mind you, he had been teaching for years. It was like he was a new teacher. So I'm like, what are the worst? And all these years you've been teaching? Okay. So up until that point, writing had been a struggle for me, And so the little confidence I had with my writing, he squashed that completely. And so I go on to college, get 3 degrees. I'm still, so now it's time to write this book. My business coach, like, you need to write a book. I was like, no way. And she was like, why? I said, because my English teacher, just like I said, my English teacher said I was a terrible writer. I can't write a book. And as I said it to her, I'm like, oh my God, you're still holding on. That voice is still in my head. And so I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. No, that's for someone else. I'm not a writer. I believe there are people who are gifted in writing. I was like, that's not me. And so she said, okay. She said, but what if you can write something that could help someone? And I was like, oh, she got me. That got me in my heart. I was like, okay. I said, if I can write a book and it can help at least one person, it was worth it. So that's why I wrote the book. Not because I wanted to be an author, not because I thought only because I thought, okay, if someone can read this and if one person can get at least one thing out of it, it was worth me writing it. So I wrote the book and it talks about some of the things we've already been talking about. But one of my favorite chapters is called Divine Design. And I believe in the creator. And I believe God created us. And he created everyone special, unique, and amazing. And so I tell people, if you get that, that's life-changing. When we realize that there has never been anyone like me, not currently, and never will be. To me, that's amazing. And so if I don't show up as who I am, the world does not get to see me. and see his handiwork. And so, but oftentimes the messages we have, the mistakes we've made, we feel like that has diminished our amazingness, but it hasn't. And so, one of the things, I have different exercises for you to do in the book to kind of hone in on the principle that I'm trying to teach. And so, with the divine design, I encourage people to go get a mirror and just look at your face in the mirror. And I do this exercise also when I do my workshops. I give people the mirror, like, look at your face. And one of the things they say, you can't criticize your face, but I just want you to look at it. Look at how your eyes are set, your nose, your lips, your cheeks. No one has your face. That is amazing. No one has our faces. We're it. And we need to appreciate it. And we need to celebrate it. But I was sharing on a podcast just the other week about when I did this workshop and I had people to do this exercise. It broke my heart because one lady, she couldn't even look at herself in the mirror. She was weeping. She said, I can't look at myself in the mirror. And I was like, well, why not? She was like, there's nothing beautiful about my face. Woo.
Oh,
yes. So that's why I said that the importance of us getting back and being reminded of how amazing we are, and so because we see our flaws and we think, oh my God, I have a wrinkle, I have gray hair, I have this, all of that, it doesn't matter. That's the beauty of who we are, the unique beauty of it. And so that's, for me, the foundational chapter of the book, just really understanding that we are special and amazing, exactly who we are. But then I talk about who you surround yourself with, confirming your own brilliance, how you are made on purpose and for a purpose. I talk about you are a niche. We are specifically made for somebody. I say, I'm not for everyone, but I'm for someone. And so that's what's important. We get caught up in like, everybody doesn't like me. Well, somebody will. Somebody needs you exactly the way you are. So show up as who you are. Who you are is enough because somebody needs you exactly the way you are. And I believe that. And so if I can get people to convince people of that, just show up who you are. Who you are is enough for somebody. And so that is really the crux of the book. But like I mentioned before, at the certain chapters, there are exercises to do to help to hone in on those principles. If you help us to really get it.
Dr. Denise, you're sharing a really powerful message with us today. For anybody listening, what's the best way for them to connect with you?
The best way is on my website. Through the website is onyouramazingnnow.com. That's where you can kind of, go in there, kind of check me out and see what's going on. But I would love for your listeners to connect with me on Facebook at Dr. Denise On You're Amazing. And there I do a weekly talk where I come on and motivate people. It's called Think About It Thursday. So I just come on for a few minutes to inspire, to motivate people to really think about their lives and be reflective on different topics that's going to help them to really own an amazing life. So website, onyouramazingnnow.com, and then follow me on Facebook.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me. This is a wonderful conversation.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Roller Coaster Podcast. Want to chat or share your ideas about today's show? Pop me an email at hello@therollercoasterpodcast.com. Don't forget to connect with me on Facebook and Instagram at The Roller Coaster Podcast. Our theme song, Roller Coaster, was performed by The Lucky Setback. Audio editing by the one and only Jeff Quigley of Quigley Creative.
Life is like